I'm gonna get started, guys, just so I have enough time in case you guys have any questions or anything. So my name is Alana Stonebreaker. This last year, I ran successfully for County Council District 1. Yeah, I know, everyone's really excited. For those that don't know, County Council does roads, bridges, court, sheriff's office, the budget for all those things. I work at Purdue. I teach an economic development course. And so I became interested. I'm going to go over how I became interested, and specifically, I tell that story so that hopefully in some part of that story you can see your own experience and realize that really running for office is not something you are, it's something that you do, and I think that anyone can kind of do it. And then I'm going to talk about specifically what I think are things to think about when considering becoming like the type of toolbox one needs to run for elected office. And then I'm going to talk about specifically why as an activist, because this is the indivisible event, why as an activist you should consider running. So I should start this by saying I never ran for even like student council as a kid. I've never been a political person. I grew up in Seattle, and then I moved out here later, so kind of different kind of languages for politics and stuff like that. I was kind of mobilized by the 2016 election. I sort of woke up a little like shocked. I felt like there was a way that things had been going, and I had sort of a hope that they would continue to go in that direction, and that sort of made me realize that I had hoped it without actually giving anything to it to make it happen. And so I realized I had very bodily experience in which I realized as a professor, I can do a lot with my brain, right? I can do a lot to think about how to do better, but this was something I had to do with my body. I had to go out, be at events, I had to be physically at things. And that started with getting more involved in Greater Lafayette Immigrant Allies, so finding issues that I was passionate about and getting involved in that way. And that also included attending the Democrat candidate trainings. I thought originally to support other people, just because, not because I had an interest in running for office, but just because I was trying to show up for as many things as possible. You may have felt like this in 2017 when you were just looking for more things to go to. From there, I learned that, so I'm a Purdue professor and also a librarian. I have an interest already in kind of local government. I found that a lot of things that I liked about acting in this community, being an educator in this community, were things I could do while running for elected office. I originally had wanted to run for the Fairfield Township Board. I had a meeting with our local Democrat Party chair, Heather Maddox, and was like, have you considered county council? We think you would be really excellent on county council. And I kind of had a long conversation with my husband, and I also kind of thought, like, if I was like a middle-aged white guy, which one of the two of these things would I do, right? Like I looked deeply inside myself, and I found the middle-aged white man inside of me, and I realized and then I realized that, what county council had a lot more power. It was going to be, the thing that was nice about township board is it wasn't a head-to-head, it's what causes an at-large race, so I wouldn't be running against someone. If I ran for county council, I was running for a two-term incumbent, former retired school principal who had not actively pissed anyone off. He is a great person. And so like I didn't have, it was gonna be a harder type of race, and I decided to run for a harder race. So that's kind of how I chose to do it. I made a group of my friends and started working on things. I eventually realized as I started running that the best way for me to run is to run a face-to-face campaign. So mostly because I am not a media expert, I don't know how to make things go viral, and I knew that, however, that I really liked talking to people at doors. I really liked going face-to-face, and I found like I was much more effective when I talked to people passionately about what county council did, about why I was running, hearing about their issues. That was I felt like I was more effective in that venue. In total, I knocked on about 2,300 doors throughout my campaign. I really like knocking on doors. I am an extrovert by nature. And so I really like knocking on doors, and it really soothed my soul to knock on doors. So I really focused on that. You may have also seen the other parts of my campaign where before I did that, I went to somewhere around 7 or 8 neighborhood associations, talked to neighborhoods, talked to them about what was happening in their neighborhood, got an idea for kind of the areas. And I also, as you may know, I ran bus ads. So that was the other way, that was the big media thing I did, was we bought ads on 8 different buses, which didn't seem like a lot when I bought them, and then when they circle, it seems like quite a bit more. I still have people who look at me weirdly and are like, how do I know you? And I'm like, you may have seen me on the side of the bus. So that's how I ran, and that's how I ran my particular campaign. With that in mind, what do I think you need in order to run for elected office? Well, the big thing is time. You do need some amount of time. Where did I get that time? I binge watched 0 Netflix shows during the time I was running for elected office. That is one of the places I got my time. Many people would ask what my hobbies were, and my hobby became running for elected office. Like, that was what I did during that period of 6 or 7 months. The other thing that you need, you don't need it, but you need either money or the ability to ask for money in a really consistent manner, but not as much money as you think. Like, someone like the Chris Campbell, Sally Seacrest race was a 6-figure race. You needed $100,000. I spent more on my campaign than I think people have spent on that type of race for a while, and I spent $5,600. And I raised about $3,600 of that from other people, and then I was willing to give money towards my campaign. Do you need to spend that much? No. Like, if I had not run bus ads or something like that, I think it would have been much less. I had things like yard signs, and definitely if you have questions about how many I had of those things, I can tell you. But you do need to have some expendable income, because you have to buy things like yard signs and things like that without having sometimes the cost in hand, so that's kind of useful. The other thing I think you need to run for elected office is you will use all sorts of your network and some parts of the network that you did not realize you were going to use. One of the examples I give is I knocked on someone's door whose name, if he's watching this, Jeff Ello, and he lived in the North End. He had a really cute dog. I petted his dog. We talked for a little bit about Trump, and then I moved on. It wasn't like my best door knock ever. But that guy, Jeff Ello, was really helpful in his neighborhood in terms of he talked to many of the little old ladies on his block and got them to put out yard signs as well. Was this a person that I knew I would meet, that I knew I could use? No. But you'll run into people like that throughout your campaign as you work. Another example of someone in my network who's really helpful is my aunt in town, who might be watching this, is my aunt invited me to her picnic for her neighborhood, which happened to be a neighborhood that ended up being one of the neighborhoods that was particularly important, the Potter's Hollow neighborhood, to kind of like being successful in my particular race. So things like that can really make a big difference. So it's not all knowing someone who knows someone, some sort of old boys network. It's a lot of smaller connections that I think are really impactful, right? That can really make a difference. So those are kind of the 3 things that I think are most important. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why you should run as an activist. Number 1, running for office escalates issues that are important to you. So if you run on a platform that includes issues that you think are important, like immigration or gun safety or something like that, then those conversations become part of the conversation as people talk about the races that are happening. And I think it's another way you can escalate the issue in your community, right? The other reason you should run is for representation, right? And specifically representation of people who look like you who run for office. So I don't think that you can affect the successfulness of other candidates, but I think you can affect the viability of other candidates as they are seen. And I think you can only positively affect the viability of other candidates. So now that people have seen someone who is a millennial who has run for office, I think the next time they see a millennial, perhaps they won't. I got a lot of, aren't you a little young to be running for elected office? I'm 32. I haven't been too young for something in quite a while. But I think that after that, I think when other kind of younger candidates come up, I think it makes a difference that someone has seen that recently, that they don't have to fight that validity argument. And even if you lose your race, you've won the validity argument. You've won the ability to imagine people that look like you running for office. Then I used to say, like, no matter what happens in terms of my race, that I've made my point by running, right? I've made my point by being out there and doing different types of things. Why else should you run for office? So you also help up and down ballot. So if you care about electing other people from your party, then you should run, because more competitive races down ballot makes people turn out for those local races that then vote up ballot or down ballot. So if you care about electing other people from your party, like electing more Democrats like I did, then you should run for office, because it does escalate that issue, increases turnout, and you might get to a couple of people that wouldn't have voted otherwise. Like, for example, I registered a lot of voters while I knocked on those doors, and I also told a lot of people who were ex-felons who didn't know they could vote that they could vote. So those are two things that I did. Even if I hadn't won, I would have increased theoretical turnout. Steve probably knows better whether or not that made a difference. And then finally, all your other arguments are invalid. Donald Trump is president. So we're gonna play a game in which I'm gonna say an excuse for not running, and then you guys are all gonna say in unison, Donald Trump is president. All right, you guys, let's practice it. I say something.
Donald Trump is president.
Excellent. All right, we got it?
Yeah.
I don't really have any political experience.
Donald Trump is president.
I tend to piss people off. I'm very opinionated on social media.
Donald Trump is president.
You know, the government doesn't really matter. All parties are the same. It's the Illuminati that run everything.
Donald Trump is president.
You know, there's other smarter people out there. They can handle everything. Everything is probably just going to turn out fine.
Donald Trump is president.
So that's my talk in general. So a couple of different things I want to talk about what's up this year. It's all municipal elections, so mayor and all the city councils. Some positions I know, because I am a Democrat, I will tell you that they are still looking for someone from the Democrats for West Lafayette District 6, which is a little bit of kind of the beginning of the frats and a big part of kind of, it's kind of more east-ish. And I know they're looking for one more at-large candidate for West Lafayette, for that area. Talk to Heather Maddox if you're interested in running. She can talk more about that. Also on the Lafayette side, they're still looking for someone for district, as far as I know, for District 1, which is the part of Lafayette that is part of the Wea Township, if that makes sense to people. So the southern parts of that particular geography. Once again, to run for office, you need to live in your geography. I do know that apparently those last two, the Dayton and Battleground town councils are also up, but that's not a partisan position. However, you should run for nonpartisan positions as well, and that's important. So I've also given you my email address and then also the key dates if you're interested in filing this year. So we can already start doing candidate filing. The last date to file in the primary election, which is if you want to run for either a Democrat or a Republican spot, then that's February 8th. But there are some other deadlines if you want to run, for example, as a libertarian or something else. And then there's just some extra deadlines. So that's my talk. Thank you all for being here on this very snowy day. Do you have any questions?
Can I do one ad?
Cool.
Any of you have college-age connections at Purdue? Some of you may be
District 3.
faculty members.
Yeah, I forgot to mention District 3.
If you know somebody who would like to run in District 3, and you're gonna have to look at a map, but it's essentially from Fuse to about the island. Anybody not know what the island is?
I don't know anything you just said.
Okay, that's fine. Northwestern Avenue to Russell and University. Okay. They have to be a student, probably. They have to live in a dorm, or they have to live in a rental property around Fuse. We don't have anybody yet for that all-student district. the college Democrats haven't helped us yet with that. So if you know anybody who would like to try their hand at politics, it is eminently winnable. We lost it to the Republicans last time because I'll tell you the story sometime. But it is quite doable, and we haven't done well at finding names. Yes.
I have a son at Purdue.
Yes.
He's currently in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
He gets back in August.
Yeah.
He's going to be living in a house on Sylvia. But
No, then he'd have to run against me. That'd be so sad.
What? But I'll
Maybe you can pick up a different lease, you know?
Yeah, he's already signed up.
Oh, too bad.
I have.
Or if he was on Dodge, we could use an evergreen, something like that. Anyway, that's
And
my
something
ad.
to mention also about those, if you know anyone who's in those races, those West Lafayette City Council races, I was looking at the District 6 to see what your win number would be in that race, which wasn't even as bad as District 3. And there's history obviously there, but the win number to win in that area was 122 votes,
Yeah.
with a total of 212 votes in District 6. Which hopefully there'll be, since we've done such a great job of registering voters for the last election, will be an entirely different race and not that low. But so my win number was around like 3,000, and then in the end there was double the amount of turnout for that particular race. But this is a very, very small amount
Right,
of...
it's a small amount of people who aren't necessarily registered in Indiana and don't want to be.
Yes,
Or
exactly.
can't be, because
Yes.
they're not citizens.
And a lot of those districts are small enough, compact enough that you can reasonably talk to everyone in that district.
And each district in West Lafayette has supposedly 7,000 people. 6,700, 7,200, the average is around.
I'm gonna text my son's friend.
So action area, like register people and convince them why they should vote locally, because it really does. I was talking to some kids, like if they care about, gosh darn beard scooters, if they care about, I mean, the power of students in that area is they could theoretically like elect their own mayor, right, in that area. And they maybe didn't have that ability before annexation in that area. It should be really interesting if you want. And so I've been trying to tell, like in a way that is much more bipartisan, how important it is to run these races. Because I think you think that they're bigger or more impersonal than they are, but a lot of those interactions are really small, right?
Yeah, I have a question for you, Alana. This is, I'm asking this question out of ignorance. I've observed lots of other candidates, with some not as successful as you and so forth. What I'm wondering is, some candidates were already well-known before they ran in their neighborhood, their area, their district, and some were totally unknown and somehow still managed to win. But I'm sure that's some advantage if you've had involvement with, like you mentioned, immigrant support organizations and so forth. To what extent did people in your district know you before you ran?
They did not know me at all. I've only, I think so. I'm looking at my husband, who is also
We
my
have
treasurer.
personal friends who lived in the district who knew us, but by and large, every door knock was a new face. So.
Like there are neighborhood organizations or, gun safety organizations. Some people have a little bit of visibility as an activist already.
Yeah.
And in some cases, I think that clearly helps. In other cases, it doesn't seem to matter. And just kind of where you fit in on that.
I think it can only really help you if people know your name, because I think one thing I figured out from this is people vote much less rationally at times than you expect. And I think just recognizing your name gives you validity to a lot of people. I don't mean that to say that everyone is not making rational decisions. I just think recognizing your name gives you a cachet, even if they don't remember from where you're from. Like, I knocked doors with Lisa Gillum, who is president of Indivisible. People recognized her name, but they couldn't figure out from where. And then they realized, oh, she's the one that sends me all those Indivisible emails. So I think it can really just help you, and that is definitely candidates that I think we should be recruiting, people who have those relationships. I know with Chris Campbell, I knew several people that were great advocates for her campaign over at Purdue who were her neighbors, right? Who had seen her work in the neighborhood association and seeing how tirelessly she worked for that neighborhood association for many years, and therefore we're more likely to be kind of like a surprise helpfulness thing. I think you'll find that people are generally, I found that people were more helpful than I was expecting. I had kind of a low expectation of help from my network, but I think, like, I had a lot of people on my block who put up my sign, a lot of connections. Yeah, you wanna add something?
I was just gonna say that I think that you were known in the community, but I would say that most of that connection was outside of your district.
Yeah, because since I'm a Purdue professor, a lot of people over on the Purdue side knew me a lot better than maybe some people in my district, which is kind of the city of Lafayette urban area. But I did have a lot of friends that lived in that area as well, which is helpful because people were willing to knock on doors in their neighborhood as well. And I think knocking with someone and saying like, oh, I'm walking with so-and-so, he lives down the street, and they could talk about like, oh, did you see that weird cat? Yeah, I saw that weird cat. And
Based on an actual conversation.
which is actually also something I should say that I did, in addition to knocking on every door, is I had someone with me who took notes on what we talked about, anybody's dog's name, anyone's kid's name, and then I wrote them a follow-up postcard, thanking them for their time, being like, it was, thank you for thank you for taking the time to open your door and talk to me. I really liked speaking about this and meeting Fluffy. And whatever it is, I tried to have those sorts of things because that would also, I'd remember that door later, and then I could write a follow-up. And my mom also wrote 700 postcards like, this is Alana's mom. Alana's running for office. She's gonna be a fresh perspective. Please vote for her. The election is November 8th. So like, I had a lot of help from my collective family and these kind of like, and that's what I mean by like, I think that those are more effective. Like, there's only so much, like, my mom really was writing every single one of those postcards. Like, I think that makes a difference. Like, in this area of like inauthentic interactions, like all the mail that ends up in people's mailboxes, I think the more you can appear more authentic, like you're really doing it, then I think it's good.
Well, I would like to add to that your race was not an easy race to pick off. So it's quite an accomplishment to do that. And I happen to know from like Ian, who gives out walk lists and things like that nobody was more aggressive than you were at knocking on doors. And personally, I'm very impressed. I heard the story before about sending follow-up postcards to people you talk to. That's a brilliant idea. Okay, so you ran a very astute campaign and obviously worked very hard.
Oh, thank you. Well, I appreciate that. It was a winnable district. It wasn't an impossible district. And I will want to say that we have a roughly 50-50 county in many ways. So like when we turn out, it is a winnable county as well. So anyway, but that's what I wanted to talk to you as well. Thanks everyone for coming out. I think we have to start the next talk. So we'll see you later. Thank you.